Hey everyone, I'm Chris, horror filmmaker and fanatic, here to tell you exactly how scary things are. Today we're talking about A Serbian Film, released in 2010 by a man whose name I do not know how to pronounce. It was his feature film debut though. You clicked on this video because you probably have heard of this film and that it is widely regarded as like the most messed up movie ever made, and it's definitely up there. Couldn't find the budget, but box office, it made a whopping $1,550, possibly all in Brazil. I wasn't quite sure about that either. Rotten Tomatoes score 47%, audience score 43%. There's not a whole lot of inner knowledge about this film that you can find. I'm gonna give a non-spoiler version to explain to you what you're expected to see if you decide to seek out this film. It's a little hard to find. But yeah, A Serbian Film, let's just dive into it. Let's just talk about this messed up movie. A Serbian Film tells the story of a financially struggling porn star who agrees to participate in an art film, only to discover that he has been drafted into something much worse. First category, thrills, the big in-your-face, exciting, intense stuff. This film is moderate on the thrill scale. I've watched this film twice, and the first time was a long time ago, and I remember it being a lot more thrilling the first time around, but second time around, I actually found it to be kind of slow at times, but if you don't know what's gonna happen, you're definitely just on edge because of the reputation of this film. If you went into this film not knowing anything, then you might actually be a little bit bored where you're like, wait, so what? Okay, all right. But the times when it gets thrilling, it's pretty thrilling and pretty crazy. Stuff gets really wacky and like heart pumping, especially in the second half. This film is a slow paced one, and it gives you the little nuggets of what it's actually about, and each time it's like, well, okay, and it amps it up more and more and more until it's like full on, oh boy, we're in a nightmare mode. So yeah, I think a thrills, it's pretty fair to leave it at the moderate scale. Next up, grossness, all the disgusting stuff that your mom doesn't want to look at. Your mom wouldn't want to watch this film. This is pretty gross. There's some gross stuff in this film. Let's see, how can I explain this without spoilers? Well, he's a porn star, so you just know there's gonna be a lot of sex stuff in it, but there's gonna be a lot of gross sex stuff in it. That's really what I can get at. And think about maybe the grossest sex stuff you can think of. Maybe not the grossest sex stuff necessarily. I think there's been other films I've seen that do more gross stuff. Like this film isn't the grossest film I've ever seen, don't get me wrong, but there is gross stuff in it, without a doubt. Definitely stuff that just gets your stomach churning. We're just like, ew, this is, what the hell? And the film's trying to gross you out, but not as much as some of the other categories I'll get to. I think if you've seen a movie like The Fly, for example, I find that film way more gross, or Raw, that's a gross film. Those will get you more in a more visceral way. This film isn't really focused on trying to make you feel the disgusting things. It's just more like, here's another gross thing to look at, and you're like, oh, okay, that's messed up. So yeah, I think it's pretty gross. I'll leave it right there. Next category, shock value, all the disturbing, messed up stuff that you don't usually see. A Serbian Film is insanely shocking. It is tough because I was surprised when I watched this the second time, because the first time I ever watched it, it was the most shocking film I've ever seen in my life, without a doubt. The reputation that this film has, it does live up to it. This film is messed up. Think about the most messed up things that you can think of possible, and that's what this film does. Like, it is trying to mess you up. It is trying to show you these horrifying, just disgusting, messed up situations, and it shows a lot of it. I mean, there's a lot of different versions online and stuff. It's really hard to find, like, the real version. There is an unedited version that just got a Blu-ray release last year, which is hilarious, and I've never seen that version, but I've seen the next version down that still shows a good amount of it, and yeah, this film's just so messed up, dude. If you're watching this video, then at least you'll be more prepared, but I am so sorry to the people who have no idea what they're getting into, because this film's just so crazy. All the sex stuff, you know, it gets really messed up, particularly just the fact that the main character is put into these horrible situations because he's hired to do a film, and without giving spoilers away, you know, things end up happening that he has to do, and they increasingly get more and more messed up. And it's fun how the film starts off a little slow. I mean, the film right away is like kind of establishing itself as like, all right, we're gonna be a messed up film, but it builds its way up. And it's like the first time you're like, all right, that was kind of weird. And then the second time you're like, oh, that was weird. And then, you know, a little over halfway in, you're like, oh, that's where this film's gonna go. And then the entire ending is so batshit insane. Oh my god. On paper, I think it's the most messed up thing I've ever seen in my life, but I'm gonna explain why I think I've actually seen more messed up films. Final category, atmosphere. The overall tone and feel of the film and how well it builds up that fear. This is where the film actually loses a lot of fear points because, as you can see, it does not focus on atmosphere. And I like to kind of say this, atmosphere to me is maybe the most important category and the one that sort of decides how effective everything else is. And while this film is a 10 out of 10 on the shock value, it is not trying to actually scare you necessarily with its atmosphere. Right away, this film is pretty clearly a satire. It is actually like having fun almost. That's a weird thing to say, but it does kind of feel that way. We're like, you know, if you sit down with a group of friends and you're prepared to watch something messed up, there is a slight enjoyment you get out of it. A slight like mind game where you're like, oh, how messed up is this film gonna get? And that's what it does. It doesn't actually really feel like you're in the situations with the characters. It's not really this overall dark, depressing, you know, experience where you're like, oh my god, this is so messed up. It's more like, oh, that was so messed up, dude. And so the atmosphere, you know, it's not really trying to scare you. It's not a scary film necessarily. You're never really going to be like, you're going to be more just like, what the hell, you know, like that's where this film is. So the atmosphere is really where this film is more manageable. So there we go, that was atmosphere. Here are all of the categories matched up together. So as you can see, this film was very focused on a couple things. It's really the atmosphere that dies down everything else, because you know, there's still a fair amount of thrills throughout the film. It's definitely super high in the middle category, especially shocking content. You won't see anything more shocking than this film, but the way that it's handled, it doesn't necessarily feel like a nightmare. Like I've seen another film, Martyrs, for example, to me is a film that's almost as shocking on paper as A Serbian Film, but the way it's handled feels way more real, and there's no enjoyment you get out of it. You know, this film, kind of weirdly fun if you're prepared for it. If you've already seen some kind of messed up stuff, A Serbian Film will push you. So overall recommendations, yeah. If you're a horror newbie, don't watch this film. If you don't like gross, messed up stuff, don't watch it. Really, I would only recommend this film to people who actually want to see something messed up, that actually want to see something that will shock you and make you go, oh my god, I didn't think people would ever make a film like this. Because that's the main thing. When I'm watching this film, I'm just like, how did they get these actors to do this? Who would write this and then decide to film and edit it and publish it? This is so crazy. But A Serbian Film, I wouldn't say is really just scary. It's just super duper messed up and disturbing. But at the end of the day, I don't really think you can take it all that seriously. So it's not gonna necessarily scar you like dark, depressing. It's more of just like, huh, well, I've seen that now. And there you go, that's A Serbian Film. I'm going to include links in the description to be able to find the film somehow. There are multiple versions. The uncut version is, of course, the most messed up one that will show everything. But without further ado, you know, check out all of my other videos. Comment below what other horror movies you'd like me to go over, because as you can tell, I'll go over anything from normal horror movies to this. And yeah, subscribe for more of these videos. Thank you for watching. See ya.